Welcome back to the Gun Show, where we are kind of like magicians. I've never started like that before, but you know why I say that? Because it's an invisible industry that we're making seen. Isn't that what an industry is supposed to do when you make everything around you? And isn't that kind of what magicians do? Although I can't juggle balls and I can't make things disappear. And actually, I've had a really bad magic career, and I don't want to go into those details. I do have a really great guest with me today. But first, before we get into that, I just want to thank everyone at MTDCNC for supporting such a fun show to humanize an industry that so many people look past or either love, depending on if you're in it or just playing on your phone. Grateful that you're playing on your phone, right? But I also want to thank our sponsors out there. We got AMT, the IMTS crew. We got a great IMTS coming in 2024 this year. It's supposed to be explosive and hopefully bigger and better than we've ever seen before. I know that's the goal. And in the U.S., we do see a ton of trade shows out there, so it's great when we can all come together and have a little fun. Our other sponsor out there is EBITDA Growth Systems, where we were working on shop rescue, and EBITDA Growth Systems is just, it's really brilliant at taking companies and helping them see the value in themselves and then making them understand how business really works from front end, back end, and everything in between. So if you're a company out there that could use a little bit of counseling and perhaps some education on quoting or shipping stuff out the door, customer service is so very important. Reach out to my friends Mike and Dave at EBITDA Growth Systems. Really great people. So without any further ado, and actually a sponsor of the Shop Rescue episode that we'll be releasing soon, is a good friend of mine, Mr. Greg McHale, founder, president, and CEO of Datanomics. Datanomics is one of those machine monitoring companies that allow us to see so much more within our shops that we think we know until we actually know. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Only I found that a lot of times we've discussed a really high-level view with how all this machine monitoring works, and we actually want to bring it all the way back down today and educate all parts of the audience, of course, but we want to educate a side that doesn't even understand what, why, how, who, what adjective am I missing? What question am I missing? But I'll let you answer that for me. I'll let Greg answer that for me. Greg, thank you so much for being a part of the Gun Show. Welcome back to the Gun Show, my friends. This is the VIP edition.
Awesome to be here, Tony. Love the studio setup here. What a great venue. What an honor to be on this show.
Yeah, well, we've done this before, but we did it remotely on Zoom, and you were, as always, well-spoken and excellent, and the audience appreciated everything that you shared with them. But this is kind of a fun upgrade with the podcast junkies, isn't it?
I'd say more than a fun upgrade. This is 2 clicks up from Zoom.
Well, I had to do it because you were gracious enough to take me to a Dolphins game last night.
Yes, sir.
And I'm a little bit sad that we didn't win. But at the same time, what a wonderful experience.
It's great energy, awesome fan base, tough game. Let's talk about manufacturing today.
Skip right into manufacturing. I want to do that as well, but Greg is actually trying something new today. And if you see this little package right in the middle of our screen right here, for those of you who are listening, I'll try to discuss this vividly, but not too vividly because it's actually coffee made from animal poo. Yeah. It's very famous luwak coffee from Indonesia, and it is one of the more expensive coffees on the planet. Have you had a chance to taste it yet?
I have not tasted it, and I did my best not to research it so that I'd be willing to taste it.
So about halfway through the show, when you do take a sip, in the middle of your sentence, I just want you to go, or blah, or whatever it might be, and we'll interrupt that part. All right, so on to manufacturing. The first thing I like to do on this show is everyone understands when we're building a foundation and creating a bridge to help people outside of an industry, but also within our industry, understand who we are, why we do the things we do, and how we got to the places where we are today. I love to build that foundation by asking you, what's your passion? How did you get here? What was your journey like? I mean, currently, founder, president, and CEO of discussionably the best machine monitoring on the planet right now. How did you get here?
Fantastic question. From the outside in is the short answer. So I did not grow up in manufacturing. I grew up in the software industry, data analytics, IT infrastructure world, computer science degree, not a mechanical engineer by any stretch of the imagination. And I was looking to get into sort of a new market on data analytics where there was an opportunity to have a real impact on the businesses that would be helped. And what I saw was that with manufacturing specifically, number one, collecting data, doing things with data was a net new skill or capability that's not intrinsically baked in to the shop floor or to the manufacturing environment, right? There's maybe if you're a huge OEM, you've had data analysts, people trying to crunch numbers for 10, 15, 20 years. But if you're a mid-market manufacturing shop, the data is arguably just as valuable, if not more valuable to you than it is to some of the, the bigger boys, but you're not going to be in the position to invest in bringing those skills in-house. So there's a gap from that. And then the second thing is, as I spent time with manufacturers, specifically precision manufacturers, owners, presidents, continuous improvement folks, operations leaders, many of them were trying to collect data and they were getting stuck at either this stuff is so basic and it's just telling me when my machines are on or off, which is nice, but like, come on, like that's industry 4.0. We'll play the jargon game later. is on off. That's the future of manufacturing. Is the equivalent of a light switch worth of insight. And then on the other side was, we look at other solutions and they assume that I have all day, every day, 6 guys that can just rip through this data and make sense of it. So really 2 big gaps that needed to be filled. One, manufacturing companies just really aren't in a position, especially mid-size, to be able to invest in data expertise skills themselves. And number 2, the solutions that existed in the market were too simple or too complicated, right? It was the Goldilocks story. We were missing the just right answer. And so we started out with this view of like, look, production monitoring is a legitimate need. People need information to make better business decisions, but nobody's done it right. And so our goal was set out to figure out what does it mean to do it right. There's a lot of layers to that of what that means, but that's fundamentally how I got into manufacturing, was out of a desire to fill this need of what needed to be done with the data for an industry that absolutely deserves high quality, impactful information and shouldn't be stuck in that position of no one's actually helping them get to the right answers.
I'm really happy you ended with that, because that's what I wanted to hear from you. You know what I mean? I was sitting here going, I've talked machine monitoring with you before, and I understand a lot of these principles about how basic something is or how overly complicated something is and the gap itself. But my question was going to be, but why manufacture? There's gaps in industries all over the world that probably could use your brains and your skills, right? So it was going to be why manufacturing, but you nailed the end of that statement with what you said. Actually gave me a little bit of chills, if I'm being honest. So you and I have spent a lot of time together over the last few years. We've been friends for a little while, and I honor that friendship for sure. I've had the great pleasure and privilege to travel the country talking with a lot of your customers, from folks that you met with at 4 a.m. to make sure that they were going to be satisfied with your product, to people who have transformed machine shops from a negative to a $10 million positive, understanding how your software works, from the biggest shops and well-known shops that anyone could ever stumble across, to some of the smaller guys. And you and I have spoken many times on camera at a level that you and I can understand. You more than me, because you're far smarter than I am, but I can kind of understand, right?
You totally get it.
So I like to have fun with you as well, Greg. But today, what we want to do is kind of really bring this back down to its creation, to its beginning. We want to talk to people out there who, much like myself a couple of years ago, didn't understand it. Because currently, Greg, I will sit in a room, and I'm a very passive, laid-back South Floridian. You're pretty laid-back, although competitive Northeasterner as well, up in New Hampshire. And we both have our competitive nature, but I don't like to argue, but I will always make discussions as we're moving into this reshoring, as we're moving into these new initiatives to compete on a global scale, to bring these things back and be able to afford to bring things back and compete on the price level. It starts, in my opinion, on levels of automation. And in the world of automation, and Ricarte Precision is a great example of that. If we walk away from our machines, if we've now figured out how we can run for 8 hours to 24 hours, but we're only going to be there the same 8 hours in that 5 days, but we're running 24/7 now, how do we understand the information that is happening while we're away? And that's where machine monitoring comes in. So in my opinion, and the audience out there can decide what my opinion is worth, but in my opinion, if we're going to compete and if we're going to automate, this is intuitively necessary to combine with that automation to truly understand what our shops are doing. But people who haven't jumped in yet need to understand why. And that was super long-winded, but I wanted to get to that point to help you also join me in this conversation and helping educate the listeners right now and the watchers, since we're on YouTube, but the listeners and the watchers of, if I don't understand a lick about it right now, please educate me.
For sure. What a great setup. So, fundamentally, the way I think about it is, if you're a manufacturer, every part that you make, every part number, that you get a print for it, you quote it, you shop material, you shop tools, you estimate it, you engineer it, you program it, you push it out to the shop floor. You have a business plan for what it means for you to be successful in producing whatever that part is. You might be making 1, you might be making 10,000, you might be making 50 in hopes of eventually making 10,000 at some point. So every part starts with a business plan. The things that are easy to see in the business plan are your tooling costs, your material costs, and, for the most part, your engineering time, the things that happen at the front end. Then we push it to the floor, and we hope that it finishes in some quantity of time that is based on some assumptions we made about what actually happens on our shop floor. That's where the magic, we're on a magician theme today.
We are, yes, we are.
That's where the magic and the mystery of profit or loss, success or failure relative to that business plan happens in manufacturing. So how do you do that? Traditionally, what companies do is, I make a labor efficiency assumption in my ERP. I make a machine efficiency assumption in my ERP. What does that mean? Well, if it's a part that takes 30 minutes to cut, I'm going to quote it at 35 because I think, I'm just going to have 5 minutes of changeover, touch time, whatever. Well, that's an awfully high efficiency assumption.
Yes, it is.
Right? I'm only going to lose 5 minutes out of every 30, 10 minutes out of every hour to the other things that my team needs to do to bring that part to life. So what monitoring puts you in the position to do is, number one, actually collect the data to tell you what your business assumptions even should be for the different types of parts that you manufacture. Whether it's milling, whether it's turning, whether it's EDM, whether it's sheet metal laser, there's all sorts of different assumptions that go into that. And look, for the industry to have gotten to the point where it has, there are people out there that are very successful and good at making sort of standard assumptions about how things should perform, and doing that in a way that has obviously allowed them to exist and be successful as a business. But what every one of those people knows is that what they've gotten good at is playing defense and protecting the business. They need to play offense and make sure that every part that they put out there on the floor has a business plan that can be validated by the data off the machine that shows them what assumptions they should be making when they put something on the floor of, well, you know what? I thought I run these at 60, 65%. The data tells me I'm 30, 35. Well, you got a few choices. Don't make it differently, quote it differently, think differently, but don't keep doing something on an assumption that's wrong by 2x and say, man, my schedule's always off. I can't get my on-time delivery right. I don't understand what's happening out there. The solution to that exists, but you really have to root it back to every part has a business plan. Are you in a position to make that business plan yield to the plus for your business, or are you relying on, unseen, unspoken information and hoping that the right things will happen out there on the shop floor?
Yeah, all valuable points. It leads me to 3 other topics, questions, points. One is the Dolphins could have used your offense instead of defense yesterday. Sorry, I had to do it. I had to do it. Secondly is comfortability, man. It's cliche. You can Google memes, whatever you want to do. Nothing grows in the comfort zone. You have to expand beyond that. And that goes back to your defense versus offense thing, where we must, even though if we've been doing something for 20 years and it's been good. But But a lot of technology grows in 20 years.
Sure does.
If we're the same person we were 20 years ago, we're missing out on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And that works with every aspect of our lives, certainly including a machine shop. And the third part I want to bring up is I brought this up to you, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. And I know we're starting with the basics of machine monitoring and inviting people in. For me, it's a very obvious statement to go, if I have 1,000 people at my shop, there's no way I can walk around and ask all 1,000 people how their day went as far as, did your machine run well? Did you break tools?
Yep.
What was your uptime? What was your downtime? How many parts did you get out? You can even have meetings once a week, but you're not going to get all the true information, right?
Right.
But I want to take it back a step and go, well, what's too small? Do one-person operations with 3 or 4 machines, can they also benefit from machine monitoring? At what level do we really need to start considering it? Because there's a really obvious level, and then there's a please teach me level.
Sure. No, that's a great way to frame it because, I mean, you said it a couple minutes ago. At the end of the day, it's about mindset. So if you're in the growth mindset, you might be 3 machines today. You might aspire to be 30, 5 years from now. So if you're in the growth mindset, the only way that you're going to make sure that you hit your goals and that you're in a position to grow is that you have the information that tells you, am I hitting my business plan? Am I doing the things that I need to be doing in order to generate the profits that will allow me to grow? So you've got to have the information to close that gap. I think sort of the traditional thought on monitoring is you get to a certain size where just chaos exceeds the ability of traditional methods.
Right.
And so that's what most people think of as the sweet spot. And
Right.
where does that chaos happen? Depends on, a bunch of things about the shop, but it's usually somewhere around a dozen and a half, 2 dozen machines where chaos starts to overwhelm the ability of one person who is very dedicated to tracking information to be able to track it. I mean, all that being said, that's really not what it's about because the person who's doing that is not doing other things for the business when data collection from the point of view of a human is an activity that absolutely should be automated. That's no different than many of the other cases that we talk about where that should just be automated. We shouldn't be asking a human labor resource, and especially, someone at the level who has the skills to be out there doing that kind of data collection has skills to do a lot of other things that are much more valuable to the business.
This is Shop Rescue.
Hi, this is Rick Bauer, Vice President of Edge Technologies. We're a leading magazine bar feeder company based out of St. Louis, Missouri. Our goal is to help U.S. manufacturing survive by using automation, and when we get the opportunity to sit down with companies like Priest to help every U.S. manufacturing company survive, our heart, our soul, our corporate culture, everybody is in this together as a team. We are here to win in U.S. manufacturing, and it takes the smallest shops, the 1 machine, the 2 machine, the 500 machine shops. We can all do this. We will win in U.S. manufacturing.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And if I was a machine shop owner, and I've run 3 pretty big machine shops at this point in my career, if I was a machine shop owner, I think you and I are similar in wanting to know everything. Like, we're curious people. The reason we're doing this podcast, for crying out loud, is so I can learn about so many different people and technologies. The reason we do this whole media channel through MTDCNC and share it with people is all these curious people. And I think innately in manufacturing, you'll find a lot of similar folks to us. Well, we want to know. So if I'm a machine shop owner and I have, I'm just going to say 4 machines, I don't want to dedicate 25, 30%, 40% of my time trying to figure out the details about what went on throughout my day.
Right.
If I can partner with the Datanomics, I have all that information provided to me, and I'm going to step back in just a second about that information, but I have all that information provided to me without me wasting my time. I can 100% dedicate myself to other things, and that could be as simple as making sure my coolant's clean. It could be making sure that I've fine-tuned my cutting tool operations. It could be talking with the companies I want to work with to bring the right cutting tools for my specific material. It could be sales. Sales is very important to grow in a company,
Sure.
right? So when I think about all of that, I also bring that up and take that step back, as I just mentioned, because we have sat in situations where people are getting information, but they have to hire a full daggone team in order to understand it. One of the great things about Datanomics, as I've talked with a lot of your customers, is that information is provided for them. The idea and the concept of what I just described is not fiction. it is an absolute reality where they can wake up to their coffee, and I think there's an espresso thing now as well. But their morning coffee, their morning espresso, get all the information they need without having to have a 1-hour meeting every single day to get that information. Would you mind talking about how that scenario works?
Definitely. So, if you're fully brand new to monitoring data collection, really the first question that you have to answer is, do you have an existing culture of accountability that you're trying to augment with data, information, reports, insights, or are you looking to the monitoring tool to create a culture of accountability for you? Huge fork in the road there. If you already have that culture of accountability, that means, you're probably already doing Gemba walks. You've already got KPIs. You talk about revenue numbers. You talk about deliveries and shipments and things like that on a regular basis. And I think, you brought up Ricarte Precision. I think Hernan's a fantastic example of someone who had a pre-existing culture of accountability with, look, everything's out there on the shop floor. These are our numbers. This is what we need to do to be successful. And the dimension that he was missing was, and where's the data coming off the machines, coming off the shop floor to show me that I'm meeting business plan for everything that we're out there in the process of manufacturing. So if you've already got that culture of accountability, then really what it comes down to is understanding how are you trying to add accountability with data. It can be, we've got to hit our cycle times. We've got to hit our utilization efficiency targets. We've got to hit our setup and changeover targets. We've got to get so many lights out hours out of every single machine, right? There's different things that when you know what it is that you're trying to be accountable for, the data's all there. It's really just what's the best thing to prescribe for your specific business and culture that's going to get that answer. Many people, though, are actually in the other bucket, and it's not a negative. It's just a nature of the evolution and the state of the industry, which is I'm actually trying to figure out how to create this culture of accountability because I've never had the data before. And I know that by having it, I'm actually now in a position to manage it, the way that I want to. So I'm really looking at this data to become the backbone for how we talk about performance and how we hold each other accountable on the shop floor. And it ends up not being dissimilar from the first scenario. It's just that you actually have to talk through a lot more of, okay, well, what is it really that it would mean for us to be more successful as a business? Is it this many more shipped parts? Is it this much more in on-time delivery? Is it closing the gap between, our ERP efficiency assumption and our actual machine efficiency because we need, incremental profit? Is it I got to ship $1 million, per month across the set of machines I have, right? Every owner has these intrinsic mechanisms and metrics that they use in their head to say, do I think the business is doing well? And if you've already mapped that to the shop floor, like I say, you've kind of already got that culture of accountability, then we go through the exercise of figuring out just how to expose the different things that you're already talking about. If you haven't already done that mapping, well, we're actually going to do that with you, right? That's the whole point. We're not going to be successful if we don't know the answer to that exact question, which is how is this data going to integrate into your culture and your discussions all the time? So we're going to work with your leadership team and figure out what is it, right? Is it $1 million a month? I got to do this on efficiency. I got to do this on utilization. I got to do this on lights out hours because that's how I modeled my business this year for what it means for us to be successful and to generate enough profit to hit our growth targets, to buy 2 more machines at the end of the year, to invest in that robot, to go to that, pallet changer that I've had my eye on for 18 months, right? The business has to perform for all those visions to come to life. So it starts there. It's actually not about monitoring. It's about what are you actually trying to accomplish in the business? And then we go through that exercise with you of now, how does the data off the machines map to exactly what you're trying to do? And the part that I know you really want me to get to is, and how does that actually manifest for them in the experience of the product, right? And there's a few dimensions of that. So again, if you've already got that culture of accountability, look, we do a Gemba walk. We want to talk about production results. Well, that is the purpose of the coffee cup report. And now you got me wondering if I need a poop coffee report to go
Oh, goodness.
to go with my espresso and my regular coffee report that's already in there. And actually, we have had customers suggest the cocktail report or the bourbon report. So we're going to have to do something there. But if you already do that Gemba walk, you're like, yeah, we talk about production results. There are pre-built workflows in the product, like the coffee cup report, which is just meant to bang. It's on the screen. We're doing the Gemba walk. Talk about yesterday's results. It's already there. If you're new to, not quite sure how we want to use the data to get things off the floor, we're going to start with the basics. So we have this whole goal-setting workflow in the product in something we have that's called Fast Track. Fast Track's built for people never done it before. Remember, we were walking around at West Tech. Tony was doing laps around the booth. I'm on the Fast Track. I'm on the Fast Track. He's power walking. And Fast Track is really about, what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to do? Is it hours per day per machine? Is it percentage efficiency you have to hit? Is it lights out hours? Is it parts per shift? Whatever the goals are, set the goals right in the product. That's the only thing you're going to do. You don't have to worry about coffee, poop coffee, espresso, bourbon, any of the stuff that you will get to over time, right? We're just going to start with, there's goals in the product that map to the goals of the business. And then very simply, people are going to see visual and visible accountability to what the business goals are. And you're going to see, as we go and run stuff, is there a gap? Am I off on my lights out hours by 2-3 hours per day? Am I off by my from my ERP efficiency assumption by 30, 40, 50%? Well, great. What are we going to do about that, right? What needs to change? And now you're on the path of I'm not monitoring, I'm responding to things I've learned about my business that are preventing me from hitting my growth goals and my objectives. And yeah, the product has all sorts of things that are mapped into that, because we understand the psychology of what the owners are trying to do. We understand the cultural implications of how do you have to get this on the shop floor in a way that is not seen as, surveillance state and beating up people, but it's just creating transparency around what the business is trying to achieve and making it super simple. So everything we've done as a company is about putting things in the product that understand what does it mean to be someone who's totally new to monitoring, someone who's mad at their monitoring, as we like to talk about, and is looking for a different or better way to do that. And I mean, that's the fundamental essence of our company. That is what makes us different.
I'm supposed to be segueing you into questions, but you keep segueing me to be able to ask some fantastic questions as well. All right, so a few things popped out to me. One or two we've talked about before, but have you ever, what's that mythical creature where you chop off his head and two grow back?
Is it the not the Kraken, but
no. Peanut Gallery, what is it?
Is it a Hydra? Maybe?
Yes, I think it's a Hydra, right? You chop off his head and two go back, yeah. So it's a Hydra, to my knowledge. And every time you mention something, I have two more questions for you, just like we're chopping off this thing's head, right?
How much time on the clock? We're good.
Well, we're good so far. So a couple of those things are, do you recognize a guy by the name of Kylan?
I do.
Yeah?
I know a Kylan.
Yeah. So I was in Wisconsin speaking with a young man named Kylan who's...
Wonder if it's the same one I know.
I believe it is. And he's using your machine monitoring. And we immediately started talking about a couple of things that he found to be phenomenal successes for him. And one was the Big Brother complex, right? You talked about that a little bit. And I think innately... we're fighting back a lot of times. We don't want cameras to be all around us. I mean, even though they are every day on every light. Yeah. We got about 15 cameras on us right now. But cameras are on us all the time. And there's this curiosity or even fear, we could use the word fear, that when these monitors go up and they see A, B, C, D, E, F as far as their grades, that they're going to feel judged, that they maybe will start performing less. They might get an attitude about it, right? But I was speaking with Kylan, and he had one gentleman, one of his best machinists actually. They put the monitoring up, and he noticed he had a C-. And he went straight to Kylan. He's like, dude, what? He's like, I thought I was doing so good. So instead of getting down on himself, literally within 48 hours, he was on an A. He figured out what was going wrong, how to fix it, how to make the machine better. That's one point, and we can discuss that further if you want to about that big brother complex that we think may exist, because we're discussing with people who don't know about machine monitoring and what they might need to fear as well with their employees, right?
Right.
So that's one thing. The other one is that I found fascinating, and machine sales guys may not love this part, but I think it's important to bring up, is that Kylan realized how inefficient he was running. And it wasn't awful by any means, but the difference was he was about to buy a new machine tool. And he realized that instead of needing to buy a new machine tool, which, to be fair for everyone watching, he has now purchased that machine tool because he is growing as a company. For all the machine folks out there, he did still buy it. But
I think it's even one of your favorite brands.
it most definitely is, yes. A beautiful blue machine. But with that being said, he realized that he could not double, but increase his productivity on his one machine without needing to buy a second machine right away, which saved him the resources that he could invest in other places in the meantime where he needed it more.
Right.
And I think those 2 points are really valuable to understand about machine monitoring.
This is Shop Rescue.
I am Andrew Lusty. I'm account executive for Datanomics. We are the next generation of production intelligence in manufacturing. Well, our slogan is make manufacturing great again, and well, the little guy is where it all starts. Every 2-guy shop, 5-machine shop turns into a 50-machine shop, and participating, right, is back to really our roots. The outcome I'd love to see is looking at even the little guys and the smaller manufacturers and understanding how they can create an ecosystem of technology that allows them to force multiply, right? And through that, right, is really all about being efficient. And that's what I think everybody here is bringing to the table.
Definitely. So, on the first one, I mean, seeing a low score and responding positively to it is the point, because what's a score? A score is a reflection of how you're doing versus the business plan, right? If we're not doing what we want to be doing versus the business plan, our only choice is to respond. It's not to cry or get angry or, complain about whatever, what the system thinks. The business needs the performance to be there in order to be able to buy nice new blue machines and bring in different technologies and training and all the other things that go along with a great workplace. So that is exactly the type of response that you're looking for. Is if we're not hitting the business plan, guys, our only choice is dig in and do better and make changes to the process based on what we can see in the data and what we can see in the platform and what it's illuminating for us that we need to be doing differently. So that's, and I think Kylan is a great example of, he just brings that must-win attitude to his shop every single day.
And his 2 brothers.
And right, the brothers and his dad and mom as well. They want to win, and they don't view those things as a negative. It's not a criticism. It's not a reflection of bad performance. It's new information that, when responded to, puts the business in a position to grow even more and be even more successful. So if we're not trying to do those things, monitoring won't help you, robots won't help you, pallets won't help you, better tooling won't help you, right? You got to have that positive attitude of, I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to win, and that needs to be instilled in everything that we do. So I think that's a major component of it. To the other point, when it comes down to, can I sip my coffee?
You may. You can tell me how you like it as well. You also have a water over there if you want that.
It's tasty.
Doesn't taste like poo, does it?
Doesn't taste like And, to the second point about, not having to buy additional machines, what's the most capital-intensive thing you can do in a machine shop?
Invest in machines.
Invest in machines. So you're talking about locking up hundreds of thousands to potentially millions of dollars.
And perhaps for years.
For years, 10 years, at 8 points.
And we might be paying cash for these machines, but not
we could
everyone's
be.
doing that, right?
Yeah, some are. I love the ones that do, but a lot of folks, it's a serious equation, and those dollars can do a lot of other things if you see that you can get more out of what you have, and you can deploy that capital differently, right? Bring that all back to, again, what's the plan for the business? There's a huge, it just like any business, for us to hit a certain level of, whatever, sales productivity or product development productivity, hiring another person is like buying another machine from a dollars standpoint, right? But if we can make process changes or improvements or focus differently on things that we're doing with the existing resources we have, we can be more productive. It's exactly the same, kind of concept. So using the information to not buy machines isn't about, being anti-purchasing new machines. Everyone loves purchasing new machines. It's, again, just about what's a different lever for your business other than $250,000 to grow or have more capacity, right? There are other levers. That's the point, and you don't need to lock up the capital, and it just puts you in a position to have other advantages and other vectors to grow by that people who aren't thinking that way don't have.
Yeah, I think you're very well expressed. That to me was the explanation I wanted to hear. I'm pretty sure the audience can appreciate that as well, because you nailed it in the sense of like, of course we want to buy machines. It's a glorious day when a new machine shows up. It's incredibly exciting, right?
Flatbed truck, is the door big enough?
all the things
Right.
I can now do with my
Right.
new blank machine, right?
Right.
So it's not about that, but resources are finite, and oftentimes, right? We're trying to divide, where do we place it? Is it in human resources? Is it in machine resources? Is it in automation resources? Is it in whatever area that we need to focus on in order to grow ourselves over the next few years? The next question I want to ask you, and it's a question I ask a lot on this show and will continue to ask because everyone's perspective of it is a little bit different, which is, where do you see the future of manufacturing heading over the next 10 years? It's a fun question for me because we're all creative in our own way, and we're all seeing the industry from different perspectives, right? But before you answer that question, I have to know, how's that luwak coffee?
It's delicious.
Yeah?
It's delicious. I'm glad I didn't talk myself out of it. I'm glad I didn't read too much about it. Smooth, tasty, really good.
There you go. I like it. I like it. So for my friends in Hidden Bali, by the way, where I was just backpacking through during the holiday season with my family, yeah, Hidden Coffee, what an amazing place, and thank you for introducing us to Luwak Coffee as well so that I could bring it to the U.S. and introduce it to my friends over here as well. Okay, so back to the question, back to manufacturing, next 10 years. I like this question for you because machine monitoring, I think, has a lot to do with it. It kind of is on a similar level as the conversation of AI, which I think kind of a little bit go hand in hand.
Sure.
So let's hear it. What do you think?
Yeah. So the first word I'd lead with is consolidation. I think that you're going to see with the reshoring and the processes and the capabilities of machines and whatnot, I think you are going to see a consolidation of the number of shops that we have, the number of companies that are in this industry, right?
A lot of people are talking about that already, yeah.
You think about, many of the owners and folks that you've met with, they're always looking to pick up another shop, right? Because go back to our earlier conversation, do you have a business plan for every part? Are you trying to make sure you hit that business plan so that you can grow? Well, there are a lot of companies, and again, it's not a negative. It's just an approach to how to run the business. There are a lot of companies out there where, you know what, I'm not trying to grow 10%, 15%, 20% year over year. I just need 3 more years out of this. We're going to go to the mountains. We're going to have a great life, and I don't want to take on that challenge of bringing it to the next level. Well, for every one person like that, there's probably 5, 10 that want that business, want that book of business, want those machines, want those human resources, capable machinists, capable operators, folks that want to be in manufacturing, bring them into their world, and now use those resources to take things to the next level. So I think you'll definitely see a consolidation of the number of companies, but an increase in the desire to be in that growth mindset. How do I harvest this reshoring? How do I, better deploy automation? How do I make use of other digital technologies to get myself to be a high performing, high growth precision manufacturing company? Because the demand side is definitely there for people who bring that attitude to harvest, what that means. So I think consolidation is definitely a big number one. I think automation is always equated with robots as the visual, and that's just because robots are visual and they're physical and they're easy to picture.
Yeah.
But automation comes in a lot of other dimensions. There are things that your very experienced manufacturing engineers do. Your very experienced setup folks do. Your very experienced supervisors do. There's knowledge automation. There's data automation. There's physical task automation. And I think that people need to think, when they think of the word automation, they need to think bigger than physical automation. They have to prepare their mind for, okay, physical automation is obvious. What are the non-obvious forms of automation that create just as much leverage for the business to do more with less?
Are we doing magic again? Are we
More
revealing?
magic, more magic. And obviously I'd want to talk to you about data automation and the leverage that creates. But it's more than that. There's other sorts of information automation of, GD&T, interpreting blueprints, requirements, how you inspect a part, how you engineer certain things, how you make certain features with certain tools, certain combinations in certain geometries. All of those types of things are equally applicable to different forms of automation that do not necessarily need to be physical. So don't limit the idea of automation to just the physical world. Would be my number two. And then my number three would be the capital that's going into manufacturing. You focus on the United States specifically. Things like the CHIPS Act are a beautiful thing. Things like reshoring are a beautiful thing, and it means a lot more than some people give it credit for, right? It's, just take it here, take it from over here and move it over here. It's conceptually pretty straightforward, but the implications of that, right? We were talking about this last night, right? When you look at something and you think about how many companies, how many steps, how many people, how many tools, how many materials, how many trucks touched that thing for it to come to life. And then you think about something as big as, we're going to centralize a semiconductor supply chain entirely in the United States. We want to do the same thing for, medical devices, for all these other categories. The up and down the stack analysis of that is massive. And that's where you think of consolidation, you think of automation, and you think of the investment that's happening in bringing all these things back here. And that it's not uniquely American, by the way. European countries are doing their own version.
Sure.
Of it just give me control of the supply chain. Put us in a position to be excellent at the things that we think we need to be excellent at, as a nation. There's political implications of the geopolitical implications of that. There's security implications of that, all kinds of things. But that's not uniquely American. We love talking about it in the context of America because why not? But it's happening all over the world. So when you combine those three things, the world that you see 10 years from now is making really high quality, really important stuff with more of it happening in the same location, with more information that needs to be coming through faster, more intelligently, to, unfortunately, fewer people that are, inside of the operation to be able to make that happen, just because of the labor gaps that, we've created through various means, intentionally or unintentionally. And so people are going to be looking for levers everywhere they can to take advantage of that massive opportunity that's coming.
This is Shop Rescue.
Hi, my name is Alex Renner. I'm an implementation project manager at Paperless Parts, the leading quoting and estimating software for manufacturers. For the little guy, really what we're all about doing is setting up a process that's repeatable, putting guardrails in place so that a shop is gonna make money on the jobs that they do win, be able to filter out the jobs that maybe might not be the right fit for them, and at the end of the day, save time and drive more profitability for their business. I'm truly bought into the mission. It was when I saw the company, it really swayed me to take that step, and getting to see the light bulbs connect for our customers, see them give us accolades for how much time, money, savings they're generating with paperless. That's what keeps me ticking in this job.
Yeah, I think that's very well described as well. We're got a little bit of time left, so we're gonna play a couple of games.
Oh, nice.
Before we get to the games, because a lot of times I get guests on here who kind of knew that they were going to be a manufacturer in their whole life, whether it was their dad in it, their grandparent in it, or they saw something and they wanted to be a part of it. 17 years old, they got into manufacturing. Your story is a little unique. But I kind of want to take the opportunity to ask you the question of what advice would you give someone looking to start a career in manufacturing? Because you didn't start in this industry. You went a completely unique path. But I think there's an audience out there that has their own unique path as well. And we're inviting so many people into manufacturing because of that labor shortage. So just a couple of minutes on that. And then we're going to play a couple of games for the audience out there. I know we love games. We're going to do an industry jargon game, which is going to be new as episode 3 of the VIP episodes edition. And then we're going to do the sound effect game again, which everyone I know loves, including my sound engineers behind the back. I see him smiling right now. He's already stoked about that part, got it queued up. So back to the question, what advice would you offer?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to reiterate a theme I was using earlier in a different way, which is the defense versus offense. Manufacturing, sort of from a social perception perspective, has been seen, as sort of this, gruff, grimy, invisible, you said invisible earlier, industry. Manufacturers and the people in manufacturing got to start playing offense, man. Thump the chest. We do great things. I mean,
we should be proud of ourselves.
I don't do great things. Our customers do great things, right? They should totally be proud of themselves. They do things that folks in other industries that take a lot more of the limelight, and this is going to sound a little weird as a software guy, but they do things that folks in a lot of other industries can't even comprehend how to do, right? Manufacturing is hard. It is very skilled. It is very complicated, and what they do deserves to be celebrated. Every company's got to start playing offense. You want to change the perception of what manufacturing is, then change the perception. It's no one else is going to do it, right? You got to make it sexy. You got to make it attractive. You got to talk about what it is that's happening that's so good. And if you're someone who's new and coming into it, know that transformation is going to happen because the ones that remain on this battlefield of manufacturing are going to be the ones who get that. All the other things we talked about, how you think about automation, how you get into a growth mindset. Well, the ones who do that are also going to be the ones that are playing offense on attracting people to the industry. I mean, look at SpaceX and Blue Origin and these other companies. It's like they don't have a recruiting problem because everyone wants to join the mission, because the mission is so much bigger than the job, right? Manufacturers, you got to start doing that. And if you're new getting into manufacturing, be someone who carries that torch and understands that you're not just getting into a job or a career, but there's really this point of transformation, of getting manufacturing off its heels and back onto offense and back on the front lines of doing great things.
I'm going to go ahead and take a pause for the audience right now because I'm going to give you a moment to cheer for that answer because I think it was astounding. It was a fantastic answer, and I agree fully, absolutely. So, quick pause. I'm going to go ahead and give you a cheer, Greg. I'm going to let the audience do it as well. Very well explained. On to the games now. Industry jargon game. I think the easiest one for you would be to simply explain machine monitoring, but we're not going to do that because we kind of spent most of the show doing that. So what I want to do is You've just gotten into manufacturing. You're this young man who's been in computer sciences, and you walk into a machine shop. What the hell are they doing in there, Greg? So industry jargon for you guys, I'm going to give Greg time to think about that. Industry jargon for you guys is it's challenge a guest to explain complex manufacturing terms in the simplest way possible. That's the name of the game. And I think we've kind of done that all day with the machine monitoring side of things because we wanted to communicate and connect with an audience out there who can truly benefit from machine monitoring from now into the future. But a machine shop. When you first walked in as a young man and you saw what the hell's going on in those machine shops, Greg?
There's a lot of stuff making a lot of noise and a lot of stuff that needs to be wiped down and cleaned up. That's what I saw.
That's pretty basic, and yeah, I imagine there's
Bang,
a lot
bang,
of
clang, clang, wipe, wipe.
I like that. We're gonna end that game right there. We have 3 noises, right, Christian? 3 noises. All right, we got 3 noises we're gonna give today. I have not been given any heads up on what these might be. I hope I can guess them as well. But they come from different categories, from machining to welding to 3D printing, additive manufacturing. Let's see what my sound engineer has picked for us today. But we got 3 of them we're going to try and guess. Don't judge us too harshly, audience. We're going to try our best. We're also going to pause before we make a guess because I would love for the audience as well to make your guesses. And if you get all 3, be honest, please, if you can be. I know social media allows you to be whatever you want to be. But be honest if you can be, and say, I got 2 right or 3 right or 1 right, or I got them all wrong just like Tony did, or whatever it might be, right? So here's our 3 sounds. Let's start with the first one. We ready, Christian? What do you think?
I'm going to say laser cutter traversing a piece of sheet metal.
That's not a bad guess. I'm leaning toward something to do with 3D printing, like maybe printing a part or the computer aspect, something in 3D. It's making a noise. I hear it going back and forth, almost like an ink printer would be doing or something like that. How are we doing, Christian? What we got?
It is 3D printing.
Hey! All right, all right.
Nicely done.
Noise number 2. What do you got?
That's Hagen, baby.
A Hagen? It sounds to me like a piece of metal is being put through a saw or something like that and just chopping it up. No? What do we got? What do we got, Christian?
It says hydraulic press.
Okay.
Really?
Okay. So
Sound
we're
effect.
we're bending material in there. Hydraulic press. All right. That's all right. That works for me. Can't get them all right.
No.
Number 3. I wish this was live because I'm gonna need some comments for this one. This just sounds to me like a lunchroom at a break in a lunchroom at a machine shop or something.
It does, where the air hose spraying the part is way off in the distance. That's what it sounds like to me.
And what's the answer, Christian?
It's a suction gripper.
I never would have guessed that in a million years.
No.
Never would have guessed it. But that's always a fun game to play.
That's our curveball.
Yeah, if any of you guys that were watching this, guys and gals, I like to definitely bring the women into manufacturing more often and talk about it as often as possible. Any guys and gals out there got that 3rd one? And be honest, I'll give you a cookie or something. I don't even know, man. But that was a tough one. It sounded like lunch break to me. All right, so that is the end of our show, minus we love to celebrate our guests here on the show. And Greg, I'm always honored when I get to spend any time with you. Thank you so much for being a part of the Gun Show. As a part of that, we have very elite bourbons, tequilas, scotch. We invite you chose bourbon this time.
I did.
And so we're going to invite our good friend Ben. He's always dressed so well. I love it. Such a handsome young man. He's brought us a little bit of bourbon. I hope you have a toast set up for us, Greg. And Ben, if you could also bring on the gift as well for Greg. We also have a gift for you just to say thank you for being a part of the show, because it truly is an honor and a pleasure to learn from you every time we get to talk.
Likewise, Tony, it's an absolute honor and a privilege to spend time with someone like you who's doing such a great service to the industry and bringing visibility and bringing the stories to life about what really happens behind all those sounds we just listened to inside those shops.
Well, we're damn sure on offense, aren't we?
We are.
All right, buddy.
We are.
What kind of cheers do you have for us today?
Yeah, I definitely want to give a toast to my family, my wife Leanne, my sons Dylan and Bradley. Tolerate Dad being on the road a lot.
That is one heck of a toast. In fact, can I play off of that a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Because my family's here in the audience today. I would also like to thank you guys with my crazy schedule and allowing me to be on the road. Thank you for saying that, Greg. That's good for all of our families.
You bet.
If you want to know more about Datanomics, it is DATANOMIX.io. Give those guys a shout anytime. Certainly something worth your time. One more time, thank you all for the sponsors out there. AMT, EBITDA Growth Systems, we appreciate you. MTDCNC, as a team, let's keep doing everything we can to remain on offense and turn this a visible industry, visible as the greatest musicians in the manufacturing. No, it can't end like that, can it? Of course it can. Cheers, Greg. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, brother.
Likewise. Delicious, by the way.
Awesome.